Hello, friends. Thank you for your attention here. Thank you for listening to me. As you'll see, this medium of YouTube videos is really working for me at the moment. I'm really enjoying sharing my views, my takes on things, and drawing on my experience of chaplaincy and all sorts of other things. And I want to tell you a bit about and give credit to Jon Watts here at the Backhouse Lecture of 2023. If you don't know Jon Watts, an American Quaker who went viral with his dance erupts in Quaker meeting, if you remember that, I certainly do. I certainly do. I was quite new to Quakers then, and I found it very entertaining, and it was great to see, young Quakers speaking in a very um, you know, uplifting and entertaining way online. And I just last week found that he had delivered the Backhouse Lecture in Australia in 2023. And I want to just play you a little bit here because I think it's really interesting what Jon said back in 2023. I didn't know about it. I haven't come across this. I just watched it for the first time last week. But I'll come back to explain why. Let me just play you 2 minutes, if you don't mind, of Jon's Backhouse lecture.
This organization that I just launched is a Quaker media organization. Its whole goal is to wrestle with these questions that we're talking about today. It's called The Quaker Project. It's a play on words. The, of course, has two E's, thee and thou. Yeah. And what we just launched is a weekly regular Quaker podcast. So it's called The Quaker Podcast, and it's sort of in the style of, some of the great podcasts out there, Radio Lab or This American Life, if you're a podcast listener. And you should be. It's an amazing medium. So I got to fulfill a years-long dream for one of our first episodes on this podcast. I got to speak to a historian of Quakers and the printing press. Her name is Dr. Kate Peters. She's a historian in England. And I just want to play for you a little bit of that episode. The episode is called Quakers and the Internet. If you want to get your message out in the world today, you've got to post it somewhere, on Twitter or Facebook, whatever. But if you want to get your message out in the 1600s, you print a pamphlet.
They're a bit like the internet now, in that something happens, somebody can write a pamphlet about it, you can have it circulated within a few days, sometimes within a few hours. And they're very light. They travel across the country very quickly, and that's what people said about the Quakers, that their pamphlets are flying as thick as moths up and down the country, that they're everywhere.
Today, we're talking about communication. Specifically, how Quakers have embraced modern forms of communication in the past, and how friends struggling to find a place in the age of the internet might take some cues from the 17th century. So that was one thing that I learned from Kate Peters, was that early Quakers were prolific in their use of the printing press. Unapologetically prolific.
Unapologetically prolific. Great. I mean, thank you so much to Jon for that. And that link back to, the printing press. I suppose what I'm really noticing myself, and if you haven't, then just, I'm going to show you some things that you should be aware of that are going on at the moment. There's so much podcasting that has just started. I don't know if you know about this one. This is Ollie in Quake It Up. I love the
Is Quakerism fundamentally a northern faith? Now, I think beyond question, it started in the north.
There you go. There's Ollie with his northern culture. Having spent a lot of time in Leeds, of course, I can see that. That's where I uh, learned about it and joined. And then there's this other one which has just started, which of course this is sorry, not just started, but just shifting perspective. So I just wanted to show you briefly the Quaker podcast, which Jon Watts just talked about. They have just shifted direction, friends, and you noticed there when he showed that clip of Kate Peters. It's a audio only podcast, and they're moving now into video in the autumn.
Today, the Sunday Times has revealed that 20 officers smashed down the.
There you go. So there's the recent podcast that I just referred to actually in my other video about the Westminster raid. I alerted you to the one there that you might not have heard about. So they talk there in an audio podcast still, and they're just moving into video. And I think this is really interesting that my videos here are using a different style. You notice that Jon Watts there talked about this is in the style of, and he mentioned some American podcasts, Radio Lab. I mean, I'm not familiar with those, and this is perhaps a few years ago. What I really used as my inspiration, I suppose, was the long, in-depth interview style. And as you can see, the 60 original interviews which I started are long conversational interviews. And I just wanted to explain a little bit, if you're not familiar with this world, is that one of the things that they said about the Trump election was that Trump was willing to go on the podcasts. And a very significant moment was when he was interviewed by Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan does a 3-hour conversational interview with, I mean, it's enormous popularity. I think it's the biggest podcast in the world. Millions of people are watching that every week. And Trump went on there for 3 hours. So although my interviews haven't been lasting that long, there's a particular style to that, which I think is different and powerful. And the analysts of the American election claimed that because Trump was willing to be interrogated, really, he was willing for his personality to come across. He was willing to kind of just maybe banter a little bit. They started talking about UFC, is it called, the fighting style that Joe Rogan is famous for, and all sorts of random conversations. JD Vance then went on there as well, and a willingness to really just talk like you're down the pub, I suppose. It's that classic, who would you like to share a pint with in the pub? What kind of politicians you want? That willingness to just be on camera and relax and be yourself. And of course, in the Quaker style is we're kind of the way I suppose I'm hoping to do it, and I'm hoping I have done it, is to move into what you might call Quaker time. We slow things down. The silences are as important as the talk. And I think that's what I'm really enjoying about the interviews that I've been doing. It's an opportunity to really get to know people. And I suppose, if I'm honest, I'm not that much of a fan of the way in which some of the big official Quaker accounts are using the video and using the kind of TikTok style, which is 1 minute, very, very clipped. I don't like that, I must admit. I mean, maybe I watch them. I don't think they change hearts and minds. It's very superficial. So, I just wanted to I suppose, argue for the case that I would love for there to be more of these kinds of interviews being developed, to be unapologetically prolific. I heard the other day that Discovering Quakers in London, or I suppose they're nationwide now because they're mostly online, they're now going to do some interviews, which is great. And I suppose I do hope that they're interviews on video. I do hope that they are conversations. And I do hope they're long. and slow and thoughtful rather than overly edited and clipped and truncated. I just don't think there's much depth in those. And I must admit, I mean, I'm very glad they're British because we can't just let, the Quaker podcast do it all. They're moving to video in the autumn, apparently. And I hope that we have the Discovering Quakers. I hope these are being led by Quakers. I was really quite disappointed to see that it's not a Quaker who's producing some of these podcasts. And I think it shows, for all the best will in the world, I'm not sure that a Quaker podcast can truly be that effective when it's not being run by a Quaker. So that's my view on that. So I'm really looking forward to see Discovering Quakers do more interviews. Good luck to you all with that project. And I encourage everyone. I mean, come on, let's get more of these out there, As you will know if you've been following these crazy amount of videos that I've been doing. I mean, I'm apologetically prolific, I think. It's a bit embarrassing, but I do hope we get more of it. I mean, there's a lot of expertise, a lot of interesting people amongst Quakers. And I hope you'll get in front of the camera and let's get this content out there because I think it's got demand, 2,500 hours of view time on my video since January. I'm just staggered by that. Yeah, I'm just staggered. So come on, let's see who else we can get on video. All I do is very simple technology. I don't overcomplicate things, as you know. I set up a Zoom with the person I want to talk to, record it, and upload it, and that's it. I don't finesse it. So you can keep this really simple, which I think is the way that we're called to do it. So I look forward to seeing more of you on film, friends.